Hello, it is I, Jay Christie, the quote-unquote curator of the Museum of Twitter. In honor of reaching 200 entries, I decided I was going to do an impromptu Q&A. Apologies if you didn't get your question in. I only gave you a couple hours to get it in. I kind of decided this last minute because I want to do something special. And so without further ado, let's get to the questions. I'll start with the Twitter-related ones before I get to some of the sillier ones. Boot asks, what made you start documenting Twitter? I started keeping a spreadsheet of my favorite tweets around the time Elon Musk bought Twitter because I thought that it might all go away. And then when I started doing TikToks, which was partly suggested for my therapist, not that she suggested to do this Twitter series, but she told me I should start doing TikToks if I was feeling creatively unfulfilled, and that was good advice. I'm like, oh wait, what do I care about a lot? Okay, Twitter. And look, I already have a spreadsheet with a bunch of tweets on it, so it was kind of like a head start. And so yeah, that's kind of how I started doing it. I don't know, I just always really cared about it, and it felt like a fun thing to do. And it's a thing that I've kind of always had a great memory for. I mean, I've always had a great memory for basically anything, but in terms of other people, I just knew that I had a more encyclopedic knowledge of tweets than most people, so I was kind of uniquely positioned to do it. The Picks and Rolls podcast asks, is there a tweet that is well known and would qualify but refuse to do it? The short answer is no, but there are tweets that are well known and would qualify that I would only do under specific circumstances, as in if I had a specific guest. I will just put it out there. I put it out there before. The famous I know it smell crazy in there exchange is something that I really don't want to touch by myself, but if I don't know the smell doctor, Dr. Ali Lukes, were to come on as a guest, I'd be willing to do it then. So things like that are very sensitive topics, I would not want to do by myself, but I think if I were to have a guest on to accurately give them context, I'd be willing to do it. JCKPTH asks, why did you decide from the start to do at least 1,000 episodes? I mean, I didn't really. I just always find it a little funny to number things with 4 digits, because it's kind of pretentious to be like, I'm going to do 1,000 of these. And then as the series started to pick up steam, I'm like, why not? And now it's kind of like a motivating factor, where it's like, no, I'm going to do this for 1,000 straight days. And I'm someone who needs a very firm motivation, and so repeating to myself and others, I'm going to do this for 1,000 straight days is very motivating. Call Me by Y/N asks, which tweet do you get most annoyed to see people constantly requesting? Other than tweets that I've already done, I just get that because people aren't going to go back and look through all of them. But the new ones that I get most annoyed are honestly any of them involving Ninja or Keemstar. Just because I'm a year and a half too old to really give a shit about those people. They mean nothing to me. And so, I understand intellectually why some of their tweets are funny in the context, but, I just don't care. And I'm gonna do them, but, they're being why don't you do the Ninja Braless wife tweet? It's because he means nothing to me at all. He's not a famous person to me, that's why. Westbrook Fan 999 asks, what sports player/athlete has the worst all-time tweet? I think the answer is probably Ray Allen, and I covered that in episode 182. Number 1 Secret Deodorant Fan asks, who is your all-time favorite tweeter? For me, it's gotta be Patty Henderson. My answer is either Drill, but Drill honestly feels outside of this, because he's not a full tweeter. He just tweets his own things. He's not participating in Twitter. So my answer is definitely Dragonfly Jones. I've gotten privileged to know him a little bit. Really nice guy every time I've spoken to him, but he just, I think, gets Twitter on a molecular level more than anyone else I've ever seen, and he's just so consistently funny. He's been funny for over a decade. I've been following him, so he's definitely my answer. Kevin says, what's the most recent tweet that you think has the potential to be in the museum? It's hard to say. I have the rule where a tweet needs to be at least a year old in order to qualify, and that's because I need to know if it stays popular. There have been many tweets that have been popular for a day and then completely disappeared from the consciousness, and those don't necessarily make sense for the museum. On my spreadsheet, the most recent tweet I have, not that there aren't more recent tweets that will be in the museum, but the most recent tweet that I know for sure is museum worthy is the I'm 17 and I'm afraid of Sabrina Carpenter tweet. Will Toledo But Black asks, what do you think was the single best day in Twitter history? Mine is probably the Montgomery Brawl or the Queen dying. See, those are both really recent ones. I think you'd have to go back just because I don't think that anything after 2020 can really be the best day on Twitter, except maybe the night that Trump tested positive. In terms of the sheer volume of jokes, the answer is probably the Yahoo Bigger Navy typo night. But I don't know, there are so many days, there were so many situations back in the day, like the time that person did that racist tweet and then got on a plane and got fired by the time they landed, which I'm going to cover soon. That was a great day. You're basically asking me to pick who my favorite child is, and I can't do that. Speaking of tough questions, Demand a Recount asks, also gun to your head, what is your all-time favorite tweet? The answer I always give is the Drill Betsy Ross tweet. I think that's always going to be my answer. It just is what unlocked Twitter humor for me, and so it would always have a special place in my heart. Acharya, I apologize, asks, what are your thoughts on ARGs or stories told through Twitter like The Sun Vanished? Honestly, I wasn't really familiar with either of these at all. I apologize, that's a blind spot of mine, but I will say a great thing about appointing myself the curator of the Museum of Twitter, which I didn't really do in seriousness, but anyway, is that I've now been exposed to a lot of different corners of Twitter I didn't know existed, and I'll be looking into this, and maybe I'll feature one of these on the show sometime. Friend of the show, Emily Ward, asks, do you have a favorite Twitter interaction you've had personally, i.e. cool exchange with a celebrity or really surprising follow? I've had a couple, but my answer is when I just threw out a tweet saying that Antonio Cromartie, former cornerback for the Jets, made up his nickname Alcrotraz because he was jealous of Darrelle Revis being called Revis Island, and Antonio Cromartie found that tweet and basically said, no, that's not what happened, you're making stuff up, get your sources right. And I felt a little bit bad because I was just talking out of my ass, but I did remember that. I thought that that was a thing that happened, but maybe I just convinced myself that that was what happened. Prext asks, most notable Twitter post of yours? Unfortunately, while I've tweeted many jokes, far and away the most popular tweet I've ever done is when I was responding to a thread about great Charles Barkley moments. I responded with a clip of him explaining why Abraham Lincoln is his favorite president. I recommend you Google it. It's a great joke, but I can't say it myself. J.R.R. Tolkien asked me to rank these Twitter features best to worst. Spaces, moments, 280 character limit, fleet, the Discover tab, and the ban on political advertising. Now, I'm going to go worst to first because that's better from a producing standpoint. I think that the worst is probably the ban on political advertising just because it was done so ham-handedly and it led to all of the bad faith criticisms of Twitter, and it really signaled like the beginning of the end of Twitter not being awful. Not that it was like their fault, but because it gave credence to so many of the right-wing criticisms of Twitter. So yeah, I think that that was a kind of an unforced error, even though I understand what they're going for. Next, I would say Spaces, because although it is funny to listen to NBA fans like say absolutely awful things about their coaching staff after a big loss and like cry on the mic, some of the dumbest things I've ever heard in my life have been on Twitter Spaces. Then next, I would say Moments, just because like it just is like you're just trying to steal from Instagram. And I'm not on Instagram because I don't like what Instagram has to offer. So why would I want that? Fleets. I'm someone who I didn't mind fleets. I thought fleets were fun. It was very low stakes. I didn't really like the way that they were on the top of the screen the whole time, but I had no problem with fleets. The Discover tab, second to last. I think it's been good generally, like to find new stuff, to find people who you don't already follow. But obviously, it's been bad because it leads to people dogpiling. It leads to people gaming the algorithm. So it's good and bad. And then the best thing I would say is the 280 character limit. That's me personally saying that because I have an incredibly difficult time with brevity. It's probably the thing that has prevented me from being successful on Twitter more than anything in the world. There's never a 5-word joke that I won't try to tell in 12 words, so 280 characters has really helped me a lot. Rosa asks, do you think Blue Sky, or Threads I guess, ever has the potential to come close to the legacy of Twitter in its prime, or is the state of the internet deteriorated too far? The answer I would say is for Threads, no, definitely not, because the whole thing about Twitter is that it has a sequential timeline that can never be replicated with an algorithmic timeline. It is the thing that makes Twitter special compared to all other social media sites. Whenever anyone's like, what makes it unique, that is the answer at the beginning and the end of it. So Blue Sky has potential on paper too. I think if it is special in its own way, it won't be special in the same way that Twitter is special, in the same way that Twitter wasn't special, in the same way other social media sites are special. I think that there can be a lot of funny stuff going on Blue Sky. I mean, I've seen plenty of funny posts on Blue Sky, and I don't think it always will be just egg-headed liberals who don't want to be on an Elon Musk-owned site there. I think eventually it will have a more diverse, in terms of like viewpoint, user base. Its big problem now is that it's a lot of the same type of people on there. And I think if it can have a more diverse user base, if it can get more normal people, because frankly, that's what's really missing, more normies, I think it can be a fun place. But, like, will it recreate the magic of Twitter? No. But I don't think that that's the thing that we really can expect. I think that whatever is going to be the next big, great social media site won't be the same as Twitter. And it will have its own positives and negatives, and I don't think holding it to the standard of, peak Twitter is really going to do anyone any favors. Caleb Landmesser asks, besides the Museum of Twitter, is there a creative project from you that in your perfect world would be popular and well received? Yes, there's a multiple. There's a one I've had in my head since I was like 11 that I've wanted to do, but the problem with it is it would require like at least 100,000 people to be a fan and voting on stuff in order for it to work, and so I'm going to keep it to myself. But yes, there are lots of things that I've thought about forever on the internet that I'd like to be successful, and I've thrown so many darts at the wall. The Museum of Twitter is probably, like, I would say the 15th or 16th thing that I've tried to do on the internet, and it's the one that's taken hold the most, so that's why I say thank you so much, because this is attempt number 16. Cole McNarcissism asked me what my sports affiliations are. Now, I grew up in New York until I was 9, Rockland County, New York, then I moved to Florida when I was 9, and so I consider myself from Florida, but I had my sports teams by the time I moved. I'm a Mets fan because my dad is a Mets fan, I'm a Knicks fan because my dad is a Knicks fan, and because I wanted to be rebellious in one sport, I decided to root for the Jets instead of the Giants, and because of that, my dad has gotten 2 Super Bowls in my lifetime, and I've had 0, so that is a huge regret of mine. In terms of college, I root for the University of Florida because both my brothers went there and I went to NYU, and NYU does not have any major sports. Rishi Balan asks, favorite SNL era, and obviously your favorite SNL era is whatever era you grew up with, so I would say that it would be Ann Golden era, the era with Samberg and Wig and Sudeikis and Hader, probably like the later years, like the post-Amy Poehler leaving years, because that's what I really was growing up on when I first started watching the show. Austin asks, do you think the Ottoman Empire deserves the title of Rome for beating Byzantium and stealing the Roman throne? No, because I don't think that they established before the battle that they were fighting for pinks. And an anonymous person asks, single? And the answer is, of course, no. Women are always lining up to date guys who spend an hour a night talking about tweets. Don't be ridiculous. I want to thank everyone who asked questions, and I want to apologize to anyone who asked a question after I started recording this. I'm just going to respond to you directly in a DM if that's the case. But I want to thank everyone who's watched any of these 200 episodes. It really means a lot. I love doing the show, and I really do want to do 800 more. No matter what happens to whatever platform I'm on, they could get rid of a million platforms, and I'll keep pumping these out as long as people keep watching them. So yeah, thank you so much, and enjoy the next 800.